Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? The chat is doing its thing again. I can see there are people here. The chat's not coming through. If you said anything other than Gary Muirhead, I have seen Gary's message. She said, "Good morning, chaps. Happy Friday, everyone. Happy Friday to you as well, Gary." As I say, there are people here. The chat's not coming through. I'm sure it'll catch up in the fullness of time. James Nagel just said good morning over on Instagram. He's bypassed the system because he's over on Instagram. Let's have a look. Gary saying cat, a matching jumper. Yeah, kind of, I guess. Kind of. It's feeling a little beige and brown. Earth tones today, don't you know? Dan Cullen has bypassed the system as well, and he's arrived as well, saying good morning. How are we? Well, good question. Good question. Relieved it's Friday. You're very relieved it's Friday. It's been a long week. Been a good week, but it's been a long week. Still laying plans for our ConExpo coverage. I was talking to Fred this morning. I'll just address this one very quickly. Cap looks well. It does look pretty damn good, doesn't it? It is my favourite at the moment, I have to say. Chris Ford is here as well. Good morning to Chris. Let me just press a few buttons and welcome people properly. I was talking to Fred this morning about all things ConExpo related. One of the things that we've got in mind is kind of a how would I describe it? Like a TV show? Not on TV, unless you've got a smart TV and you can watch it on YouTube via your TV. But yes, the whole idea basically is to film pretty much everything at ConExpo. The hotel, the restaurants, the strip, the taxi journeys, the stands, the press office, the whole kit and caboodle. And then to turn that, we'll do it a couple of weeks after the show has ended. We'll actually do a whole hour or so dedicated to it. So I'll keep you posted on that. Andreas and Diaz says, good morning from Brazil. Bom dia, my friend. Bom dia, all the way from Brazil. Yeah, we're big in Brazil, apparently. Fingers crossed. Yeah, absolutely. Mark Whiting is here as well. I can press Mark's button. I hit the right button, but I've done it in the wrong place. Where are we? There we are. Are you going to be doing some walking and talking videos? Yes. Yeah, I showed you the fancy new camera the other day. And yeah, basically, I mean, as I say, I've just had a word with Fred, and Fred kind of shook his head in disbelief that I was suggesting it because he knows what I'm like. One of the things I'm very guilty of is I'll film on a stand or film in an aisle, finish what I'm doing, stick the camera in my pocket, and then walk off for 10 minutes past all the stuff that you'd probably quite like to see, and then think, oh, I'll get the camera out again now. But I don't know if I've got to sellotape it to my hand, staple it to my chest. I don't know what I'm going to do, but one way or another, the plan basically is to film the entire experience. If I have a burger at lunchtime, you get to see it and stuff. What about the drone walk and talk? Well, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. The only problem is we use the drone indoors at MineExpo, but MineExpo, very big show, but fewer people. ConExpo is heaving with people. I'm not entirely sure I'd get away with flying a drone. We are taking a drone to try and capture some overhead shots as well, but I don't think that's going to work as a walk around. Andy Thornton is here. Morning. Is this where the happy, shiny people hang out? No, you've mistaken us for a completely different show. Very quickly, what have we got here? I saw something from Dan somewhere. Oh, hang on a minute. Mick Norton's here as well. Morning, Mick. Where did it go? Where's Dan's comment go? Waiting on a few calls. Hopefully, Armac gets back to me. Oh, well, I tell you what. If you get the call from Armac, you'll not work for a better company. Have to say. Fingers crossed, Armac and Duo Group get back to me. Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed for you as well. Have you purchased any new equipment for the trip? Not yet. Not yet. I do have my eye on what is known as an SSD, a solid state drive that basically magnetizes to the back of your phone. So rather than films and photographs taking up all the space on your phone, it's bypassed and straight into a solid state drive, which I can then take off, plug into my computer, and I can edit from that. I don't know how much I'm going to be filming from the phone, given the fact that we've got a new camera, but I've got my eye on that. But we do what we always do. We'll make these random purchases and use them much less than we thought we might. And then and then there's the stuff that we really could do with. We get to about a day before the show and go, yeah, we should have bought that thing. That's the way it works. Ken Hatcher, he's here. He's got all of the weather. Say good morning to Ken. There we are. That's official. Should we crack on? We're getting political at the end of the show, so if that's not your bag, I don't blame you for ducking out a bit early. But without further, hang on a minute. So I may need to pop off if a call comes through. Dan, not a problem at all. We'll tread water without you. I'm sure we'll be fine. Let me roll the intro and get the show underway. Where's my star? Says Ken Hatcher. Where is your star? Where is your star? Bear with me a second. I'm sure you've got one. Maybe it's just not come through. Bear with me 1 second. Yep, definitely there. Definitely there. Let me try it again, see if it shakes it loose. Now, the funny thing is, I'm seeing it on my screen. It's gone through, but when it comes up on the chat, not there. Don't know what's going on with that. Did Fred ever buy that big, fancy, expensive camera that he wanted? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And the funny thing is, I mean, the results with it are astonishing. They are astonishing. I do like me a camera. I do like me a fancy lens. I like to look at images and think, oh, well, that isn't that fancy. Some of the stuff that comes out of his camera is just truly remarkable. The problem is, particularly for something like a ConExpo, it's quite a lot to carry. And really and truly, when you're actually going to be broadcasting on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or something like that, you can't really tell the difference. Great for photography, mind you. And I know when we do some corporate work and that kind of thing, it's very nice to have the big fancy camera. I think people take you a little more seriously if you've got the fancy camera rather than breaking out your iPhone or whatever. But yeah, no, we've got that. We've got that. It's in the bag. It's ready to go. It's ready for its flight to Las Vegas. Just wish I could say the same. Anyway, it is Friday, the 23rd of January. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, the authentic voice of the global demolition industry. In today's show, one operator, multiple machines with Hitachi. Operators get some digging assistance from Volvo. Cat compact tracked loaders are forged in fire, and we're taking another step closer to ConExpo with our latest episode of Voyage to Vegas. Plus, in my morning monologue today, the Trumpianism of Tier 1s. Told you we were going to get political. We're going to do precisely that at the end of the show. But before we get to there, let's have a bit of this. We've done that. Ignore that. Let's have a bit of this. Now, I realise that one of the concerns that many of you guys have, particularly those among you that are actually operators, is the threat of autonomy and it taking your job. Will we ultimately see just unmanned machines roaming the planet? I think in some instances we will. I think the bigger threat and the more real threat is likely to be the whittling down of the workforce, having one person in charge of 2, 3, or possibly even more machines. A bit like this.
Hi, I'm Stephen from Landcross Innovation Studios. Our mission is to find exciting new tech to help Hitachi become a solution provider. So we're here on site, Telio's test facility. Telio won our 2024 challenge, and they've therefore retrofitted some of our equipment. So we're here today to sort of test that out, see how it is, and look at this supervised autonomy solution. Hitachi has a great brand reputation around those reliable solutions, around those really great pieces of equipment, but that's a hardware approach. So where we see a lot of great innovation coming into the industry is from that software approach. What we're trying to do as the Landcross Innovation Studios team is take some of those things which at the moment maybe seem like they're a little bit into the future and bring them into the now and make them relevant and current on job sites. So that we can really revolutionize and solve some of the issues and pain points in the industry, while also bringing that strength that we have as a global OEM.
At Telio, since the genesis of the company, we really wanted to bring autonomy into construction, but while keeping the human component of it. Right behind me, we have retrofitted a Hitachi ZW310 wheel loader, and we're basically enabling a single operator to control multiple machines from the distance. They have full control of all of the options available in the vehicles. They can instantaneously switch from one machine to the other to drastically improve their productivity. We really felt that there was an opportunity to kind of switch the experience of being an operator in construction to something that would attract people who would not think about doing construction in the first place. The philosophy and the reason why we built Telio in the first place, right, is like, how can we augment the impact of your very best operators, right? Like, I think the most mundane and repetitive tasks should be automated, right, to preserve the skill sets of the operators to really focus on the most challenging part of the job.
As a fleet manager from Park West, I could see how Hitachi and Telio are working on bringing solutions in the future for companies like Park West. I was blown away how easy it is to learn, especially coming from me personally, not being an operator. It is a difficult market. It's really hard to find, qualified operators for all the different type of machines we have. To have someone operate 2, 3, even more machines at one single time could reduce our cost significantly and could avoid a lot of safety incidents that we've had, accidents with the operators in the machine.
Wherever there's exciting and innovative things happening, we want to be there, we want to connect with those innovators and see how they can be part of Hitachi's mission to be a solution provider.
I'll get into the discussions of autonomy and remote control in a second, but first of all, I want to address this. Gary Muirhead says, a chicken and mushroom pie, a pucker pie for breakfast. Feels too early to me. I realise you were up earlier than I was and stuff, but it feels too early. And yet, I am one of those people that quite likes breakfast for dinner. If I'm left to my own devices, and my wife is not about, my ideal evening meal is basically a full English breakfast because I'm quite good at frying stuff. So I can't really complain about a pucker pie for breakfast, but I'd rather have breakfast for dinner, if you see what I'm saying. Obviously, we were talking there about autonomy and simulation and that kind of thing. Just want to very quickly remind you, if you're part of our WhatsApp group, you will already know this, but on Wednesday, the 18th of February, I will be paying host to CM Labs, one of the companies at the very forefront of machine simulation and that kind of thing. We work with them at the Utility Expo over in Louisville, Kentucky. We're working with them again, which I'm delighted to say, working with them again at ConExpo. So if you are around on the Wednesday, the 18th of February, you can join me and one, possibly two, possibly even three people from CM Labs, all the way from Canada. That will be at 7 p.m. Going back to all things AI, Ken Hatcher says, I think it'll be a long time till Mr. AI takes over from Ken. Well, Ken, you are truly irreplaceable, as you well know. 10 years I've got to go if I make it. Well, let's hope you do make it. Gary, good question. I wonder what our forefathers would have thought about machines driving themselves. Yeah, absolutely. It was probably a standing joke years ago. Yeah, I bet it was. And when you think about, we predicted, the Jetsons with our flying cars and, all the things that we imagined, many of which I think have come true. Star Trek, I think, was very, very good at imagining the future. Little communicators on your chest and stuff like that. Yeah, but who I wonder was imagining. Even when you think about the Alien movies, I know I always refer, whenever we talk about exoskeletons, I always refer to Sigourney Weaver's Ripley in that big exoskeleton, which is fine, and I'm sure there will be a degree of that. But why did we not foresee the fact that, why would we put a person in it? Why don't we just have a person sat with their feet up and a cup of coffee in their hand and let the machines take care of it? Mick says, I would need more convincing on the claim that a multi-machine scenario reduces incidents. Yeah. Although I do wonder, that system, as far as I could tell, was autonomous operation. So my guess is, if you're operating one machine, the other machine is not operating. I think that was the case. And if that's the case, if you've got one machine standing idle over here and you've got another machine actually working over here, maybe, but yeah, we shall see. Anyway, so kind of halfway house next, not full autonomy, but machines helping man after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
You ever been driving a machine and thought, I could really do with a bit of a hand here? Just a bit of an assistance. Volvo have got you covered.
If you invest in this technology, you are investing in production, you're investing in accuracy, and you're investing in no callbacks. My name is Harold Lunny. I'm the owner of Harold's Concrete and Excavation. We do complete site work for concrete and excavation as well as septic. If you take a job like this, and it typically takes between an hour to 3 hours to lay out, and that machine has a core value of $250 an hour, and you have a laborer that's costing you $75, that's $325 an hour that you've wasted with tape measures, grade stakes, and paint. That machine has circumvented all of that through the whole dig. So time is money, and Volvo has got the system to help you make money.
Pretty simple set of math there, I would have thought. Back after this with some compact loaders, or compact track loaders, should I say, from the mighty Caterpillar.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
I tend to get awfully caught up with Caterpillar. I do love me a big dozer, do love me a big dump truck, do love me an excavator. But I have to say, some of their compact track loaders are the absolute dog's doodahs. Take a look at this.
You strive for your best in the workshop, on the job, through good times and tough times. Remember those early days, making progress one boot in the dirt at a time? We do too. but you kept showing up. And each time it was a chance and a challenge to push forward so you can redefine what you're capable of. And now you need a machine that can keep up. That's where we come in. Meet the all-new next-generation CAT compact track loaders. A whole new level of performance in compact machines. Maximise agility and stability so you stay grounded even on the move. Lift more, lift higher. They're stronger than ever so you can get the job done. Increased all-round visibility lets you keep your eyes on the task at hand. Bigger, comfier, and with everything at your fingertips, a cab like no other. It's where business gets done. Lots of power and controls that just make sense. Your go-to loaders however you work. Designed by customer insight, built for your job site. From design to steel and factory to field, they're a testament to you. Because in our history of working by your side, we may be defined by the machines we build, but we're driven by what you do with them. The CAT 255 and 265 compact track loaders, built for a new generation of work. Built to work like you do.
Had a comment in from Mick here. It says remote control of plant is not a new concept. Bomb disposal units of the Royal Engineers were using remote controlled 580 and 590 IMAC excavators in the late 1960s. I mean, I know that Caterpillar have been playing around with autonomy for 30 plus years, but yeah, back to the 60s. Unbelievable stuff. Nice kit, but still all the same. Dan is a hard man to please, isn't he? Where are we going next? Oh, yeah, Las Vegas. One of these mornings, I will remember to actually start a countdown for how long we've actually got. But the show opens on the 3rd of March, so it's getting very, very close indeed. And this is just some of what we've got to look forward to.
This March, the biggest names in construction and equipment manufacturing are coming together in one place. Inside, outside, and everywhere in between, because no roof can hold a show this big. This is where you get what actually moves the needle for your career, your job site, and your business. Meet 2,000 of the top brands across construction. Get hands-on with their newest machines and technology. Ask your toughest questions to the experts who actually build the equipment that you rely on every day. And because every major brand is here at the same time, you can compare options side by side and walk away knowing exactly what fits your operation best. Plus, new workshop programs offer targeted, expert-led learning that you won't find anywhere else. Maybe our Shop Talks and Walks workshop, hands-on technician and operator-focused training sessions built to cut downtime and lower costs. The Small Business Workshop, where proven leaders share the strategies they use to win work and stay competitive, no matter the market. Or even the Empower Her Workshop, a leadership-driven program focused on supporting and elevating women in construction and giving everyone the tools to build stronger, more inclusive, future-ready teams. And with more than 150 expert-led sessions, there's no shortage of learnings you can take home and put to work immediately. No fluff, just practical skills and insight you'll actually use. Pros from every corner of construction and manufacturing show up here, and you can see why. If you want to learn it, test it, compare it, and gain an edge, this is where you do it. This is how you take construction to the next level. Register now and join nearly 140,000 industry pros in Las Vegas at North America's largest construction trade show. And don't wait, this show is so big it only happens once every 3 years. Miss 2026 and you're waiting until 2029.
I'm a little bit excited, I have to say. A little bit excited. Dan Cullen says, here's a question. Why do most brands go for yellow colours? My guess is purely one of visibility. I'm sure that somebody back in the day thought, yeah, we need to make them a fairly striking colour and they'll stand out. But it goes back to what we were saying about PPE the other day. if you're constantly surrounded by neon yellow of PPE or kind of boring yellow of excavators, do they still stand out, or would you not be better off going? Personally, I've always been a fan of white machines. I particularly liked, the carded machines, the Despo machines, but also manufacturers that dabbled with color, like Proclaim, for example, Case Proclaim in the red and white. I always thought that looked absolutely fantastic. Which major excavator brands will not be at Las Vegas? I don't know. I'm not entirely sure if JCB are exhibiting. Last I heard, they weren't. Do you consider them to be a major excavator brand? Just let me do the quick maths. Hitachi are there, Caterpillar are there, Komatsu are there, Lugong are there, XCMG are there, Volvo are there, Liebherr are there. Not entirely sure who else is missing. But if you've spotted somebody that I haven't spotted, or if somebody is conspicuous by their absence, please let me know. Dan Cullen says, "Will JCB be there? They've got a US base. They've got a US base. Let me just very quickly. That's not the thing I was looking for. Let me just have a very quick look at this. As I say, the last time I looked, they were not on the list. But let me have a look, see if they are." JCB are there purely for powertrain. So the power systems, engines and axles and transmissions and stuff. Not, I mean, in absolute truth, I know we've said this in the past, JCB is not exhibiting and you turn a corner and there's a JCB machine. But under their own power, JCB as an equipment manufacturer, not there. They are there purely as a powertrain provider. Anyway, people, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. And it also wraps up this week as well. I'm going to, do the usual thing. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very, very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back in just a moment to kind of talk politics, although not really. You'll see. Donald Trump arrived in Davos clutching a thick stack of papers held together by a bulldog clip. Those papers, and there were many, they were, he claimed, a list of his accomplishments, the deals he'd brokered, the wars he'd prevented, the drug flow he'd halted, and the tariffs he'd imposed. He then restated his aim to take over Greenland, the easy way or the hard way, he said. He then confused Greenland with Iceland, claimed he'd done more for the NATO alliance than anyone in history, and reminded the audience that the 2020 election was stolen. Many in attendance rolled their eyes, but as I watched, I experienced the strongest feeling of deja vu, like I'd seen this behaviour before, but not on the global stage, somewhere far closer to home. For the average demolition or groundwork contractor, the machinations of the World Economic Forum usually feels worlds away from the gritty reality of the site. Yet the events of January 2026, dominated by the clash between a belligerent American administration and a resistant bloc of middle powers, offers a perfect mirror to the daily struggles in our supply chain. We all know the type, the superpower client, the tier 1 contractor who demands absolute fealty, makes requests that defy reason, and threatens financial ruin, the construction equivalent of a trade tariff, whenever a subcontractor refuses to bend the knee. In Davos, that role was played by Donald Trump. In the construction sector, it's played by the corporate giants who treat their subcontractors like vassal states rather than partners. Trump's address to the 56th Congress was a masterclass in the Tier 1 mindset. He declared the US the economic engine of the planet, telling gathered nations, You all follow us up and you all follow us down. Every subcontractor has heard this speech in a boardroom. It's the major contractor reminding you that you only exist because they allow you to. It's the insistence that their financial health is your problem, but your margins are irrelevant to them. Just as Trump disparaged allies while claiming America was the hottest country on earth, Tier 1s project an image of infallible success while quietly offloading every ounce of risk onto the supply chain. The demands for loyalty are explicit. When Trump calls a Federal Reserve chair disloyal, he mirrors the main contractor who views a legitimate contractual pushback as a personal betrayal. When he demands ownership of Greenland because he needs to defend it, he echoes the Tier 1 logic that insists on controlling your cash flow for the good of the project. The flashpoint in Davos was Greenland. Trump framed his demands as a trivial request for a piece of ice. He trivialized a sovereign territory, just as major contractors trivialize scope creep. In construction, this is the minor tweak to a plan that doubles your risk profile, or the demand to accelerate a schedule by weeks for zero extra pay. When the middle powers refused to hand over the ice, Trump didn't negotiate. He threatened retribution. You can say yes, or you can say no, and we will remember. That phrase, we will remember, is the sword of Damocles hanging over every subcontractor. It's the threat of the blacklist. Acquiesce to the unreasonable or be frozen out. In our sector, Tier 1s don't levy trade tariffs, but they impose costs and terms that work exactly the same way. What are retentions, if not a tariff by another name? As Canada's Mark Carney noted, in these lopsided deals, integration becomes the source of your subordination. For too long, subcontractors have signed unfair contracts just to keep the peace. But that system only survives if we keep agreeing to it. When we refuse to price work on suicidal terms, the illusion cracks. Now, obviously, we can't change the game entirely. We all need to work. But we can change how the game is played. If 80% of your turnover comes from one abusive giant, you're not a partner, you're a servant. Diversify. Form alliances with other specialists. Share intelligence on bad payers and credit risks. Push back as a collective. If Greenland had stood alone, it would already have a McDonald's drive-through and a statue of Trump the Great and Powerful. But it isn't alone, which is why Trump returned to the US to seize and plan his vengeance against those that refused to do his bidding. Donald Trump, like many Tier 1 contractors, demands total capitulation. But as the middle powers in Davos proved, it doesn't have to be this way. In our industry, as on the global stage, it's plain to see that appeasing a bully only invites more demands. True power lies in unity, not bluster. The cost of bending the knee is ultimately far higher than the cost of walking away. Had an itchy nose all the way through that. Now, before I go over to the chat, one of the things I made, the points I made there, what are retentions if not a form of trade tariff? Also, Mr. Trump, who, thanks to his bone spurs, managed to avoid the draft. Trump and his ilk expect others to put their lives on the line for them. Invade this, fight that, all of that kind of thing. How is that any different to a Tier 1 getting subcontractors to do the work that they're unable or unwilling to do themselves? And then most recently, I'm sure you've seen it in the news, Trump's Board of Peace, gathering the likes of Benjamin Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin, some of the worst perpetrators, the primary culprits in not peace but war, gathering them together. How is that any different than Build UK? There's my thoughts on the subject. Just tidy my screen up and I will go over to the chat to see what you're all saying. Dan says, well, guys, have a fantastic weekend. You too, Dan. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Are all the big Chinese brands going to be there? And will we be hit with tariffs for displaying? Yes, I did report a while back that XCMG weren't going to be there. XCMG are going to be there. They're under their full name, apparently. So they're going to be there. All, as far as I can see, all of them are going to be there. I want to say very quick good morning to Jerry Sam, who's just said demolitionnews.com. How are you doing? Jerry, we're doing pretty damn fine. Thank you very much indeed for being here. And also say good morning to Adelaide Plant Recovery, who I'm assuming are in Adelaide. You're a long way away. What time is it where you are? I always love the Vickers Vigor, a 180 dose in a terrific shade of blue. Yeah. Why is there no blue? I mean, I know there are at the bottom end. Multi one, I think, a blue. Why not more? Dan saying, stay safe, stay happy, and give those closest to you a hug and tell them you love them. I'm going to do that immediately after the show. Mick Norton says, I noticed that Trump physically dumped the portfolio with his claimed triumphs as he came to the dais and went into his usual rant. Yeah, almost. I don't know if you, it's 9 p.m. apparently in Adelaide. Thank you very much indeed for that. I don't know if you noticed. I'm at the point with Trump now where I can't actually abide listening to his voice or watching his weird face. But I did catch a bit of that. He arrived with this huge sheath of paper held together with a bulldog clip, which he took off. And I think I don't know if it nipped him or came close to nipping him. And he held the bulldog clip up and he said, oh, you see, they're dangerous things. But if it had got me, I wouldn't have batted an eyelid. I wouldn't have flinched. I would never let you know that I've been injured. Mate, it's a bulldog clip. It's not a shotgun round. It's a bulldog clip. And yeah, the thing that I found most interesting, which is precisely what inspired that morning monologue, was the fact that I got the very real impression, and I realise there is still plenty of time for Keir Starmer to capitulate because that apparently is his specialist subject. But I got the impression that Davos was pretty much a line in the sand where a lot of the overseas, particularly the Canadians and the French, went, do you know what? No. I think they were far too polite to tell him to fuck off, which is precisely what he deserved. But no, we're not having that. And you can rant and rave all you like. And the bizarre thing is, he, being Donald Trump, he then jumps on Air Force One and claims that he's made some deal over Greenland. We've got an interest forever. Well, you already had that, mate. You've already got several bases on Greenland, all of which are, non-negotiable and there's no end date. Half of his base now will probably think he's achieved something, whereas the right-thinking world are going, what the hell is this bloke talking about? Have you noticed his wife is nowhere near him lately? Has she started thinking he's lost his marbles? Possibly. Although, the word on the street is that Mr. Trump does not smell too sweet. So maybe that's part of it. And I'm absolutely delighted. Have you seen the reporting on the Melania film? As part of his bending of the knee to the great and powerful Trump, Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, agreed to pay $40 million to produce a documentary on Melania Trump, which will air, or it's airing in cinemas apparently, and then it will be on Amazon Prime, so you can watch that should you so desire. And apparently, it's bombed. It's on cinema. It's on in cinemas in America, and nobody is going to see it. Which, please, I mean, there's kind of a triple whammy there. Melania Trump, you're not as important as you thought you were. Donald Trump, you might have made 40 million quid out of it, but you're a laughing stock as a result. And Jeff Bezos, yeah, that's showing you for what you are, mate, isn't it? Yeah, you've bent the knee and you've done your Lord and Master's bidding, and now you have an absolute turkey of a film on your hands. Well done to all concerned. The issue. Let me do this one first. We should never forgive Trump for yesterday failing to acknowledge the ultimate sacrifice of the NATO personnel who died in Afghanistan since 9/11 alongside the Yanks. Ah, yes. We would come to your aid, but you've never come to ours. Yeah. In actual fact, one of my biggest problems with our special relationship with America has always been the exact opposite of that. America gets a bit wary one afternoon, and lo and behold, British soldiers die. Never been entirely comfortable with that. I think once the days of empire were over and done with, I think we became a lot less warrior-like. I think we'd quite like to keep our head down and keep the peace. But every once in a while, the Americans do their saber rattling and we end up going to war and losing men and women as a result. Never sat entirely well with me, that. Going back to the notion of the middle powers, which I think is a weird expression anyway, but the middle powers standing up to Trump and telling him hands off Greenland and stuff. One of the issues that I think is where my analogy falls down is, I think Mark Carney, the premier over in Canada, I think he came across very well, was very diplomatic in saying, back off, mister. I think Emmanuel Macron, I know a lot of people don't like him, but I think he did a pretty damn good job, despite the sunglasses. That's something we lack. Who in our industry is the Mark Carney? Who in the demolition industry, the subcontractor or specialist contractor end of things in the built environment, who is going to go to Build UK and say, yeah, I hear what you say, but no, we're not going to do that. You've had it your own way for far too long. No. Stop right there. No. Have we got one of those? And I think one of the biggest issues is, even if we did have one of those, a brave and bold and emboldened person as a leader of, the subcontractor of the end of the industry, would everyone have their backs? Andy Thornton says, sorry guys, got to go. Have a great weekend. You too, my friend. Why do we jump through hoops to satisfy the Americans? I think we got a raw deal. And I realise that Donald Trump is constantly banging on about how the Europeans have been ripping off America for years and all of that kind of thing. I've kind of seen it the other way around. I think once the world cottoned on to the fact that we were just a tiny island, us here in Britain, and that we'd been punching way, way, way above our weight in terms of owning half the world and stuff like that. Once that was all over and done with, and we handed back, large lumps of the empire and handed back bits of the Commonwealth, I think we were left exposed. And I think, deliberately or otherwise, I think the Americans took advantage of that. We speak the same language. We by and large, we agree on most things, by and large. And if we go to war, you will back us up, won't you? And the Brits went, oh, absolutely, sir. Yeah, we'll certainly do that. I mean, when you think back, with the notable exception, I think, of the Falkland Islands, I don't think we've, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think we have started a conflict, a military conflict with anyone for 80 odd years, but we seem to be in them all the time, generally acting as caddy or scout for the Americans. Weird, isn't it? Mick Norton says, trivia point. In August 1815, the Royal Engineers supervised the burning down of the White House. Did they? And then here we are. What was that? 1815, and then 150 odd years later, 250 odd years later, rather, Donald Trump just knocked down part of it to make way for his ballroom. Even in construction, we're all eager to please, and it's yes, yes, yes. No one yet causes a little uproar to say, no, we won't stand up to your diabolical push and time frame to complete the site. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I realise it's a stretch. I do know it's a stretch, comparing the Global Economic Forum and construction. But when you think about how tier ones stomp about the place and you will do this, you will do that, you will do it by then, you'll be agreed to pay this, we will hold back some of the money. They set the standard, they set the benchmark, and everyone just, yes, sir. And I do think for, probably since the war, by and large, the world has done that to America. Yep, absolutely. We're with you all the way, which is absolutely fine while they're being reasonable. When they start to become unreasonable, like I am now the acting president of Venezuela, I want Greenland just because I'm a spoiled toddler and I want Greenland. I must have it. At that point, you do need somebody to go, enough now, fella. Go and have a lie down, get your temper under control, sit on the naughty step for a little while, and let's have a chat about it afterwards. Like this job in Strood, 48 weeks from start to finish, 7 houses to be moved into, and no one takes a stance against their time to pay you for your job. It's funny you should say that, Dan, because I do think there's kind of a double story with this, as I referred to it, the Trumpianism. I think the tier one contractors, the majors, tend to treat their supply chain like Trump treats his allies and other nations. But then I also think further down the line, I think there is more Trumpianism in the way that employers treat their employees. You will do my bidding. I'll pay you when I feel like it. Sometimes I'll pay you. Sometimes I won't. I'll off-hire you when I feel like it. You will work to my rules, regardless of how unreasonable that is, because I know full well that you are desperate for work, desperate for money, and therefore you will do my bidding. It's exactly the same. It's the flexing your muscles as a superpower above those below you. And the crazy thing is, as a result of this, our latest World Economic Forum with all that went on, I think if somebody like if Mark Carney, I think, got on the phone now to the nations, the right-minded nations of the world, and said, I've got an idea, I think most of the right-minded world will go, all right, Mark, go on. In principle, whatever it is, we're kind of with you, unless he's planning to take over America, which is unlikely. But by and large, I think the fact that he came across as statesman-like, as a unifier, as forward-thinking, as engaging, as welcoming, because of that, I think the rest of the world went, well, he seems all right. Whereas I think the way that we look at Donald Trump is, your default is, what the fuck is he up to? And I think it's exactly the same in business. I've mentioned this before. I've worked for lunatic editors and friendly editors. And I can assure you that the friendly editor got 2, 3, 4 times more out of me than the lunatic. Because when you're working for somebody that is just constantly demanding, sooner or later you just start to go, no. Your default reaction is no. Whereas if somebody is friendly and kind and supportive and generous and so on, yeah, go on then. What? You need me to stay all night? Yeah, what the hell? Be a laugh. Dan also says, no, that's Jim. Morning, peeps. Sorry I'm late. The life you lead, Jim. The cows escaped. Are they back? Have they returned? And are their horns working? Yes, very true. you will do the work for me and get it completed on time. Yeah. And so often is it an unreasonable request? And I always go back to the timing issue. I think if we were granted enough time to do the things that we're required to do in this industry, enough time to take down that building safely, enough time to take down that bridge safely, enough time to build those houses, enough time to build that tower block, I think our quality would improve, and I think ultimately our safety would improve. And yet, we seem to work the other way around. A demolition contractor will look at a project, let's say a tower block. It's going to take us 6 months to do that. We're going to employ this methodology, and it will take us 6 months, methodical working, nice and steady, nobody gets hurt. And the client says, absolutely. Let me sign on the dotted line. You've got the job. Now do that in 3 months. It's an unreasonable request. And unfortunately, we very, very, very rarely stand up and say no. There has been some limited rebellion, I would say. I mean, I do speak to demolition contractors that have basically drawn a line in the sand and said they won't work for tier one contractors anymore, and I don't blame them for that. But I do think that would carry a lot more weight if that were a united refusal. Because ultimately, a tier one contractor can carry on being utterly unreasonable because they will always find somebody else to do the work. Whereas if, for example, the demolition industry got its head together and said, these tier ones, taking the piss, don't do it anymore. The tier ones would have to play ball. If you want something demolished, you've got to be reasonable, or we just won't do it. And, your multi-million pound tower block or whatever it might be ain't going to happen because we're not going to clear the way for you. End of. But we don't. I think there is a disunity at employee level, i.e. there's a lack of union, for want of a better term. I think further up the supply chain, there is a lack of unity among subbies, specialist contractors. And as a result, we end up with tier ones who can stomp about the place, act like Donald Trump, and get away with it. They've surrounded themselves with people that will bend the knee, subjugate themselves, capitulate. Sorry, old state of affairs, isn't it? Anyway, people, I think that's probably enough of that for today. I'm going to take a long weekend off. When I say a long weekend, I mean 2 days. I'll be back on Monday. Don't forget to put in your diary, Wednesday, the 18th of February, 7 o'clock in the evening, we'll be hosting the fine folks at CM Labs all the way from Canada to talk simulations and autonomy and all of that good stuff. They've got a new product, which I'm not at liberty to talk about, but they do have a new product coming down the tubes, which will be ready, hopefully, in time for ConExpo. Hoping to convince them to tell us a bit about that, so we get a first look at that. But until Monday, everyone, please try and have a good weekend. Don't let the bastards grind you down. And I will see you all very, very soon. Thank you for your company. Have a good weekend.